The Orphan Fleet, Chapter 1, Ancestral Whispers. Anya Petrova stared at the flickering holographic display, its constellations she'd only ever seen in faded textbooks. Her fingers, calloused from years gripping the worn control console, traced the unfamiliar star patterns. The air in the command center hummed with the low thrum of the engines, a constant lullaby that had lulled generations of humans to sleep under a metal sky. Anya Petrova stared at the flickering holographic display, its constellations she'd only ever seen in faded textbooks. Her fingers, calloused from years gripping the worn control console, traced the unfamiliar star patterns. The air in the command center hummed with the low thrum of the engines, a constant lullaby that had lulled generations of humans to sleep under a metal sky. Captain Volkov, a hulking figure weathered by years spent staring at the same constellations, cleared his throat. His voice, roughened by recycled air and a lifetime of barking orders, rumbled through the confined space. "Captain, ETA to emergence." Anya blinked, momentarily pulled from her reverie. "2 standard cycles, Captain." Her voice, a product of sterile corridors and recycled oxygen, sounded thin to her own ears. "Standard protocol for first emergence in an unknown system." Volkov grunted, the sound swallowed by the omnipresent hum. "Right, standard protocol. Always the safest bet." He shuffled his feet, his gaze lingering on the viewport. "Though some might say a little cautious." Anya pursed her lips. Volkov, a relic of a generation raised on stories of a bygone Earth, held a deep-seated distrust of the unknown. "Safety first, Captain," she replied, her voice firm. "Always." Silence settled once more, broken only by the rhythmic hum of the engines. Anya felt a familiar unease gnaw at her gut. Generations had passed since the Exodus, the great ship that carried the last vestiges of humanity, had fled a dying Earth. Their ancestors, seeking a new home among the stars, had entrusted their future to this colossal vessel. Anya, raised within its sterile confines, had never known anything different. She stole a glance at the crew gathered around the central console. Young faces, some barely past adolescence, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and anticipation. They were the future, the next generation born and raised in the artificial womb of the Exodus. They had no memory of Earth, its verdant fields or azure skies, only the stories passed down through generations. Whispers of a paradise lost. A flicker of movement caught her eye. Alara, a young woman with eyes the same blue as the faded images of Earth's oceans in their history archives, stood by the comm station, her brow furrowed. She glanced towards Anya, then back at the comm console, her hand hovering over the activation button. A silent question hung in the air. Anya met Alara's gaze. Every fiber of her being screamed caution. All communication protocols dictated silence, until they had a better understanding of the new system they were about to enter. But Alara's eyes held a desperate longing, a yearning to connect with something beyond the metal walls of their artificial world. With a deep breath, Anya nodded. Tradition might dictate caution, but humanity, she realized, was not just about survival. It was about hope, about reaching out towards the unknown. Chapter 2, Uneasy Greetings. The artificial reality flickered one last time before dissolving entirely. Anya squinted against the sudden burst of raw starlight, the unfamiliar constellations burning brighter than any simulation could replicate. The sterile hum of the engines was replaced by an unsettling silence, broken only by the soft hiss of escaping atmosphere. Volkov gripped the armrest of his chair, his knuckles white. "Readings nominal, Captain," he reported, his voice strained. "No immediate threats detected." Anya forced a calming breath. The vastness of space pressed against the viewport, a stark contrast to the artificial world they had known. Her gaze swept across the control room, taking in the crew's reactions. Nervous energy crackled in the air, a mix of awe and fear etched on their faces. "Standard emergence procedures," Anya announced, her voice echoing in the tense silence. Crew members moved with practiced efficiency, their movements honed by generations of drills. Anya watched them, a flicker of pride warming her chest. These were her people, the inheritors of a legacy carried across the vast expanse of space. A sudden tremor shook the ship, a jolt that sent a wave of unease through the room. Alarms blared. red lights strobing across the control panels. Volkov barked orders, his voice cutting through the rising panic. Anya fought down a surge of adrenaline, forcing herself to focus on the console. The tremor subsided as quickly as it began. A tense silence followed, broken only by the frantic beeping of the alarms. Anya scanned the incoming data, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Captain," a young crew member, Kai, his voice tight with excitement, pointed at the holographic display. "Incoming signal, unidentified origin." Anya zoomed in on the blip, her brows furrowing. The signal strength was increasing rapidly, emanating from a massive object directly ahead. Her stomach clenched. Standard protocol dictated avoiding unknown objects, but curiosity gnawed at her. She glanced at Volkov, his face grim. "What are your orders, Captain?" Anya hesitated. The weight of generations rested on her shoulders. The future of humanity hung in the balance. She took a deep breath, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "Prepare for visual confirmation. Slow approach. Minimum power." A collective sigh of relief rippled through the control room. The tension remained, a tangible presence in the confined space. As they inched closer to the unidentified object, the holographic display flickered to life, revealing a colossal space station. Its sleek metallic form gleamed under the harsh glare of a nearby star, dwarfing their own vessel in size and complexity. A smaller vessel detached itself from the station, its sleek design a stark contrast to the utilitarian form of the Exodus. It moved with practiced ease, weaving towards them like a predator closing in on its prey. Anya gripped the armrest, her knuckles white. This was it, their first contact with an unknown intelligence. The fate of humanity, she realized, was about to change forever. Chapter 3. Cold Steel and Icy Words. The smaller vessel, a sleek silver dart compared to the hulking mass of the space station, drew closer. Anya watched with a mixture of fascination and apprehension as a docking bay extended with a metallic hiss. "Receiving incoming transmission, Captain," Kai announced, his voice tight with tension. Anya nodded, her gaze unwavering from the approaching vessel. A metallic grating filled the control room, followed by a voice that was a synthesized blend of several languages, none of which she recognized. The words were clipped, formal, laced with a hint of condescension. "Unidentified vessel, this is the Aethel Dominion patrol craft Talon. Identify yourselves and state your purpose for entering Aethel Dominion space." Anya pursed her lips. The formalities were expected, but the coldness of the message sent a shiver down her spine. Volkov leaned closer, his voice a low rumble in her ear. "They don't seem particularly welcoming, Captain." Anya keyed the microphone, her voice carefully neutral. "This is Captain Anya Petrova of the Exodus. We are a vessel of human origin on a mission of exploration. We come in peace." A tense silence followed. Then the metallic voice returned, laced with a hint of surprise. "Human origin? We have no record of such a species in the Dominion databanks." Anya's stomach clenched. "We are a colony ship, fleeing a dying Earth generations ago. We seek a new home." The control room held its breath. Anya could almost feel the scrutiny of the unseen beings on the other side of the transmission. A long moment passed before the voice spoke again, its tone laced with suspicion. "Docking procedures have been initiated for further investigation. Prepare to be boarded." Anya's hand tightened around the microphone. A boarding party? Their vessel housed their entire civilization, their history, their future. "Captain," Volkov growled, his voice low and dangerous, "this feels like a trap." Anya met his gaze, her own resolute. They had nowhere else to go. "We have no choice, Captain. We comply." With a metallic groan, the docking clamps engaged, securing the Exodus to the alien vessel. Anya watched as a hatch on the opposite wall hissed open, revealing a figure clad in sleek black armor. The helmet obscured their face, but Anya felt a wave of fear wash over her. This was it, their first encounter with another intelligent species. The future of humanity rested on this conversation, on the words she was about to speak. The figure took a deliberate step forward, its movements radiating a practiced efficiency. Anya stood, forcing herself to appear confident, despite the tremor in her hands. This alien, clad in cold steel, might represent their first contact, but she wouldn't let fear break her. Humanity, she realized, wouldn't go down without a fight, figuratively or not. Taking a deep breath, she straightened her shoulders, ready to face whatever came next. Chapter 4, Echoes of Power. The alien figure, its form cloaked in the ominous darkness of its helmet, advanced with measured steps. Anya stood her ground, her gaze locked on the visor that hid its face. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating, broken only by the rhythmic hum of the docked vessels. "Captain Anya Petrova," the alien finally spoke, its voice a distorted monotone filtered through a translator. "I am Regent alias Thorn of the Aethel Dominion." Anya inclined her head, a gesture she hoped conveyed respect. "Regent Thorn, we come in peace, seeking only a haven for our people." Thorn did not respond immediately. He swept the control room with his unseen gaze, the silence stretching into an eternity. Anya felt the crew's unease growing, a collective breath held in anticipation. "A haven," Thorn finally echoed, the word tinged with skepticism. "Your vessel, it is primitive compared to Dominion technology." Anya swallowed the prickle of offense. Their technology was old, yes, a relic of their exodus, but it had kept them alive for generations. "We have survived a long journey, Regent," she replied, her voice firm. "Our technology may not be as advanced, but it serves our needs." Thorn's silence spoke volumes. Anya, desperate to bridge the gulf between them, decided to take a gamble. "We have knowledge," she said, her voice steady. "Knowledge of a different world, of a different way of life." The alien tilted its head slightly, the movement almost imperceptible. "Knowledge of Earth, our home planet," Anya elaborated. "We have vast libraries, historical records, scientific advancements. Perhaps there is something we can offer the Dominion in exchange for your hospitality." A flicker of something akin to curiosity crossed the visor. The silence remained, but it felt different now, charged with a new tension. Anya held her breath, willing the alien to see their value beyond their outdated technology. Suddenly, a new voice cut through the tense atmosphere. A young crew member, Kai, stepped forward, his face flushed with a mix of defiance and excitement. "Captain," he blurted out, ignoring Anya's warning glare, "we have something else the Dominion might be interested in." Thorn's unseen gaze shifted to Kai. "And what is that?" the distorted voice inquired. Kai, emboldened, threw Anya a defiant look before turning back to the alien. "We have potential," he declared, his voice trembling with a mixture of nervousness and pride. "Untapped potential." Anya's heart hammered against her ribs. Kai had no idea what he was unleashing. The whispers aboard the Exodus, the legends of a dormant power within their genes, were just that, legends. But Kai seemed to believe. Thorn remained silent, a statue of cold steel in the sterile control room. Then slowly he raised his hand. A low hum filled the air, emanating from his armored form. It was faint at first, barely perceptible, but Anya felt a jolt course through her body. A tingling sensation, a prickling at the back of her neck. Fear turned to bewilderment, then to a dawning realization. This was the power Kai had spoken of. This was psionic energy, and somehow the alien had activated it. Anya met Thorn's gaze, a spark of defiance igniting in her own eyes. They might be refugees, but they were not helpless. Humanity, she realized, might not have advanced weaponry or sleek spaceships, but they had something far more potent, the untapped potential of the human mind. The control room thrummed with a new energy, a silent challenge hanging in the air. The future remained uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity, for the first time, had a bargaining chip. Chapter 5, A Fragile Hope. The air crackled with unspoken tension. Anya met Regent Thorn's gaze, the silence broken only by the faint hum that seemed to emanate from the alien himself. The display of psionic energy, accidental as it may have been, had shifted the power dynamic in the sterile confines of the control room. Sweat beaded on Kai's forehead, his bravado replaced by a mixture of fear and awe. The crew, initially bewildered, exchanged nervous glances. Anya, however, felt a surge of a strange calm. This unforeseen ability, a dormant legacy whispered about in their history archives, had become their unexpected trump card. "Interesting," Thorn finally rasped, the distortion in his voice almost palatable. A most intriguing development. Anya refused to back down. Indeed, she replied, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. Perhaps our potential is more than just historical knowledge. Thorn remained silent for a long moment, seemingly lost in thought. Anya held her breath, the weight of humanity's future resting on this alien's decision. Finally, he spoke again, his voice laced with a hint of what might have been grudging respect. The Dominion faces challenges, he admitted. Environmental problems plague many of our outposts. Your technology, if demonstrably effective, could be of benefit. Anya's heart leaped. This was it, a chance, however slim, at survival. We have solutions, she said, her voice filled with newfound confidence. Technology for waste treatment, for environmental restoration. We can help. Thorn considered her words for a long moment. Then with a slow nod, he spoke. A demonstration, then. If your technology proves effective, the Dominion may be willing to offer accommodations. He emphasized the last word, leaving its meaning deliberately ambiguous. Relief washed over Anya, a wave so powerful it almost brought her to her knees. It wasn't the home they had envisioned, a new Earth to call their own, but it was a chance to survive, to rebuild, to exist as a people in this vast and unforgiving galaxy. We are ready, Anya declared, her voice ringing with newfound resolve. The following days were a blur of activity. The crew of the Exodus, their initial fear replaced by a fierce determination, worked tirelessly to prepare for the demonstration. Kai, under Anya's watchful eye, explored the limits of his newfound ability, learning to control the psionic energy that pulsed within him. Finally, the day arrived. A Dominion vessel docked with the Exodus, transporting them to a remote outpost ravaged by pollution. Anya watched as the crew, their faces grim but resolute, deployed their technology. Slowly, painstakingly, the ravaged environment began to heal. Thorn, his visor reflecting the harsh sunlight, stood beside Anya, his silence a stark contrast to the rhythmic whirring of the machines. When the last patch of land had been cleansed, a tense silence descended. Thorn spoke. Impressive, he admitted, the word devoid of emotion. Your technology is indeed useful. Anya held her breath, waiting for his verdict. After a long pause, Thorn continued. The Dominion is willing to offer you a settlement on one of our outlying planets, a place to rebuild, to contribute your skills. A bittersweet smile touched Anya's lips. It wasn't a perfect solution. They were still dependent on the Dominion, their freedom curtailed. But it was a future. Humanity would survive, not through brute force, but through the ingenuity that had always defined them. As the Exodus, under the watchful gaze of the Dominion vessel, set course for its new home, Anya looked out at the vast expanse of space. The journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but they would face them together. Humanity, she realized, was not just a collection of bodies confined to a metal shell. It was a spirit, a potential, an enduring spark that refused to be extinguished. The whispers of Earth, faint echoes of a lost paradise, might still linger in their hearts, but they were ready to write a new chapter in their story. A chapter filled with hope, however fragile, for a future amongst the stars.